In a world largely populated by bright colors and goofy sound effects, realism and more serious themes in video games were a new and exciting addition to the medium. But now, the tables have turned, and with most modern games dealing with deep emotional themes or aiming for photorealism, goofy and almost cartoonish games are a breath of fresh air. Undead Horde 2, Necropolis, takes this concept and delivers a charming game within a slightly subversive but fan-favorite fantasy niche, commanding an army of the undead to dole out destruction. In Undead Horde 2 Necropolis, you play as the King of Undead, who has been awoken after the living have laid siege to Necropolis, a city in the afterlife for souls to find solace. The living have devised and created soul jars, which enable them to preserve their life, and have raided Necropolis in search of more souls. As the King of Undead, you seek to rebuild Necropolis, reclaim the souls that were taken, and punish the living for their arrogance. The game has action RPG elements, with a health and mana bar, a melee attack and primary spell, and is built around the ability to raise minions to fight for you. You're eventually able to have up to 5 different minions that you're able to raise, and there's also a toggle screen to further manage your horde by selectively dismissing units. Each unit has a command cost that is visually represented with a segmented ring around your character portrait. Your minions have 2 states to toggle between, following you, and charging forward in attack formation. When units are toggled into attack mode, they charge in a specific direction and will attack anything destructible in their attack range. As you clear areas, you will collect various items that can be equipped or converted into gold to spend on upgrades in Necropolis. There are also secret chests hidden in each area, and the number of secrets left to be found in an area is tracked on the world map. The world is divided into 4 sections, each being a unique biome with specific enemies and some environment-specific puzzles and hazards. There are also NPCs in most areas that provide dialogue and sometimes give quests to defeat a specific enemy or find a collection of items that the NPC needs. The NPCs provide an avenue for the underlying humor in Undead Horde 2 to come to the foreground with short dialogue interactions that deliver a punchline or quests occasionally being references to elements of pop culture. Moment-to-moment gameplay is structured around using your combat abilities to clear areas that are inhabited by the living to recover the soul jars that they have created. Each soul jar contains a single soul that was a resident of Necropolis, and each recovered soul will rebuild a part of the city. In the second half of the game, noble souls are introduced that are typically hidden behind some puzzle that needs to be solved within the area. As the game progresses, you unlock more facilities in Necropolis, such as an equipment shop, a rune shop for additional secondary spells, and a council where you can allocate noble souls to provide stat upgrades to you and your horde. There are several unit types that you can experiment with that each belong to an overall classification or house. The houses are skeleton, corpse, animal, and spirit. And there are 5 unique unit types that make up each house. The units in each house are varied, with some having different passive effects that can apply to all of your forces. For example, the zombie unit has a passive that increases the health of friendly units for each raised zombie in your horde. Houses can be upgraded with gold up to level 3. Each level increases the strength and the command cost for each unit, and unlocks a new tier of unit talents. These talents further strengthen units of the specific house. There are talents that increase stats or add new passives, such as corpse units exploding for poison damage when they're defeated. Each talent needs to be unlocked with gold, and can only be activated when the required amount of commoner souls are assigned to that talent. Commoners can be unallocated and reassigned at any point, which encourages experimentation, especially as you unlock more units for each house. While playing the game, I found a few things that stood out as worth mentioning. While exploring each area, you passively gain a speed buff when out of combat for a set amount of time. I think this was a very smart decision the developers made that improves the experience without creating further complexity in gameplay. If movement is burdensome, it discourages backtracking to find missed secrets, and automatically increasing your speed out of combat reduces friction to explore. Coupled with the fact that the areas are big enough to remain engaging, but not so big that they're daunting to explore, the game subtly encourages going back to find missed secrets. Another thing I felt was worth mentioning were instances where some additional control of your horde would have been nice. Sometimes units would choose to attack through choke points due to what I can only assume was the shortest path calculation of enemies in attack range. I would try to maneuver my minions away from these paths and send them around, but they would frequently move back to these choke points and made some engagements more difficult. Something else that stuck out was how frequently gear is dropped by the enemies. An overwhelming majority of gear drops would just be converted to gold, but gear drops were so abundant that I would frequently have to stop and empty my inventory. This is somewhat mitigated by being able to convert items to gold from any location, but as a result, I ended up largely ignoring gear drops about halfway through the game. I'm not against gear in games, and there were some interesting special gear rewards for completing quests, but the lack of variety in buffs or special effects outside of quest reward items reduced most gear loot to just being gold with an extra step. The last thing I wanted to mention was what felt like a significant lull right in the middle of the game. It easily could have been the result of poor upgrade strategy and spell selection on my part, but there was what felt like a noteworthy amount of time where I did not unlock any new content and enemy units were getting stronger. Strong enough to turn some situations into just throwing units and hoping not to get wiped. During this time, I was very close to writing the game off and moving on. However, I am glad I persevered because I eventually did overcome this hurdle, unlock more units, and get back to having fun. Undead Horde 2 Necropolis is a very solid game that delivers well on minion command gameplay. The variety of units, spells, and humor present throughout results in an enjoyable experience that's well worth the playtime. Thanks for watching, take care, and remember, keep having fun.